Welcome back to Battalion Wars. We're here on the third mission of the game, one of the more breakable missions in my opinion. It's really easy, but then again, this is the early game still.
When are you going to give up? This is stalemate, father.
Patience, Nova. The game is not over yet.
Marshal Nova, there are reports of sporadic fighting across the demilitarized zone.
What? The western frontier have broken the truce?
Actually, no.
Forgive me, son. I could not stand to see you toss our proud imperial history into the wastebasket of reformist peacemaking.
How dare you? The Tundran army is no longer yours to command. Nelly, take control of those units. It seems we are at war.
You would replace me with her? This is an outrage!
Proud imperial history, the best reason for making war and throwing the entire country into chaos. Then again, everyone in this game seems to enjoy war so much anyways, so it doesn't really matter to them.
Colonel Austin at your service, Commander. The radar array at Windbreak Ridge has intercepted vital enemy transmissions, but it is now surrounded by Tundran forces. We need you to reinforce Windbreak Ridge before it falls into enemy hands.
The Frontier are attempting to resupply the radar array. Stop them at once.
Major Nelly, sounds like she means business, Commander. Let's get going.
Now, before we actually play the level, I want to point something out here that'll be very interesting later on in the game. This is our map screen. The red area that you see on the map here is the level's boundary. You cannot go past that boundary very far. If you try to, the game calls you out for being a coward and returns you to the level area. But as you can see here, if I try to order my men past the boundary, there's a brief period of time where they no longer register as being part of my battalion and can't be commanded. But they'll try to move back into the main level area so that they do count as being part of my battalion. Now, I point out the finer details of this because it'll be important when we start controlling air units later on in the game. The AI isn't very good with air units. Anyways, onto the level itself. We have some warm-up grunts, basically. I don't know why the game gives us only 2 when we have 4. I actually make that 3. I didn't see that third grunt there. He's taken out quickly enough. Did he try to climb the hill? Interesting. There's more grunts up ahead, but they're sitting next to the ammo dump, so you can guess what happens there. Interesting in that the rifle shots seem to have a limited range, which is kind of strange, but I suppose bullets would eventually fall to the ground after a certain period of time anyways. And after we cross this river right here, we'll be able to control our very own bazooka veterans. We saw them briefly at the end of the previous level, but here we can actually control them for ourselves. Bazooka veterans are a little bit slower and a little bit more durable than rifle grunts are. They fire slow-moving bazooka shots, which are pretty slow, but if you use charge shots, they'll be a lot faster and a lot more powerful. And as you can see here, they take out these 2 recons fairly quickly. Recons are still not the heaviest of vehicles in the game, but it's a pretty good show of the bazooka veterans' power. Now, their weak point is that they are supposedly too slow to hit rifle grunts and other infantry. However, I find that if you fire at point blank, it's really a moot weakness. And bazooka shots take a lot of health off infantry, no matter what distance they're fired at from. Anyhow, here we are at the radar array we're supposed to protect. You can see that flag right there. Supposedly in this game, you capture something as soon as you lower the enemy's flag and raise your own, which is what the infantry in this level are going to attempt to do. Fortunately, they're pretty easily stopped by these 2 MG nests. That's really all it takes to stop an infantry unit is an MG nest, unless it's a bazooka veteran, because they'll just blow up the MG nest. Now this is what the capture point looks like. As stated, when the enemy lowers your flag and raises their own, they've captured your thing. Fortunately, while they're in the process of capturing, that is, pulling down on the ropes there, they're completely vulnerable. So you could, in theory, let them get to the flag and shoot them while they're trying to raise it. Or lower it, rather. Of course, I find that with a couple of MG nests and a bazooka veteran, you could just take out the enemies directly. As seen here, the bazooka shot can actually take out a rifle grunt in one hit if it's fired at point blank. Yeah, try and dodge that one. Yes, all throughout this level the enemy is going to behave very oddly. Only rifle grunts attack from that side, so I could leave them alone for the rest of the level and they'd defend it themselves if I wanted to. In fact, that's actually what I did on this take. On the other hand, on the other side of the map, only recons are going to attack where we've left the bazooka veterans, so you can easily tell that we're still in a tutorial level of sorts. Of course, I like to take the extra time to destroy the scenery. I hope nobody docks my score for that. Actually, it'd be pretty interesting if they did dock your score for letting too much of the scenery get destroyed. On second thought, that'd be kind of mean. And I have nothing to say about the easy battle against the recons here. I ought to just, like... You know what's funny is I've actually gone all the way to the very edge of the map while the recons were in the process of spawning, and I saw them, like, just teleport straight to where they were supposed to be. Evidently the designers did not anticipate you being where they were going to spawn the enemy units. I like searching for ways to see the enemy pop into the level. It's very interesting. As we see here, the AI is doing a very good job of defending the other side of the radar array on their own. And I keep searching for things to find in the tents, but apparently they didn't put anything in them in this level. Oh well. So, if you thought defending each side of the map individually was troublesome, now it's time to defend both of them at once. But as we have seen, the AI is more than capable of handling the other side of the map on their own. So, let's go ahead and take out these recons all on our own with a single bazooka veteran. See what I meant about the level being breakable? You know, one of these days I should see if a whole one unit can handle all of this map on its own. Oh yes, and the thing I want to point out here is that when you lower a vehicle's health down to the point where it's almost dead, it gets set on fire and explodes eventually anyways. So sometimes it's not worth taking the time to make that extra shot that will blow up the vehicle when it's going to blow up anyways. Although if it finds a health pickup in the time between being set on fire and exploding, it'll live. Here we have an enemy T-copter trying to drop units directly next to the flag. Notice that the T-copter itself is invincible until it actually lands. That's unique to this level. Almost every other time you find a T-copter, an enemy T-copter rather, you can actually shoot it down before the units land and it'll take out all of the units inside anyways. And I'm jumping at the flag to see if any enemy infantry had actually tried to lower it, because if you're able to jump in it and raise the flag, it means an infantry touched it, but obviously none of the enemies did. And I'm too lazy to wait And I'm too impatient to wait for the reinforcing light tanks, so let's go ahead and blow up the final enemy light tanks on our own. Now, this level might seem like it was way too easy, but, you know, the big difference between the computer-controlled units and player-controlled units are actually one of the things that I think make this game very fun to play on your own, because, you know, if you're really, really good at controlling a unit, then you can do so much more than the computer would have been able to if they were controlling the units. So it's a pretty nice skill-based game is what I'm saying there. Also, if I were you, I wouldn't get too attached to Major Nelly, the enemy commander, because she only shows up in a whole 3 levels in this game. Very underutilized character, in my opinion, and she's Austin's love interest. So, this game still has a little bit of wasted potential. Like, they didn't introduce multiplayer until the sequel, and it's not very good multiplayer. Anyhow, very easy S rank. Next up is one of my favorite levels in the game because it puts a lot of emphasis on my favorite unit in the game, the recon. Ooh, this should be fun. Wait, don't spare the horses? Don't spare the horse. What is that supposed to mean? Does it mean like... Is it referring to in Days of Yore when you had both horses and men in combat? I don't know. Never mind.
Good to see you again, Commander. Now listen up, because we need to move fast. During their assault on Windbreak Ridge, the Tundrans captured 2 of our scouts. They are holding them in this base. Your job is to rescue the scouts and use their recon to get them to the safety of our mobile camp to the north.
Sir, yes, sir.
This level starts out pretty simple. You just have a light tank and a couple of rifle grunts to deal with, and oops, I ordered the bazookas to attack the wrong unit, so I had to reorder them. Breaking in here is pretty simple. You can actually run past the tank. Just don't touch it or you'll take damage. Now once you free the recon and take control of it, the other units leave your battalion, but don't worry, they'll be okay. Now, I love driving this recon here because its physics lend itself to doing very silly things. Like right there, I slam into the infantry unit and it just goes flying. This is very much a gimmick level, but it just works out so well in my opinion that it winds up being a lot of fun. I've seen people have their recon do a 360 when it lands after a jump. It's fantastic. Papers, please. Ah, I'm hit. It's also a lot of fun to... Oh, I'm bouncing around a lot right here. It's also a lot of fun to like go whizzing past enemy tanks that are trying to shoot at you. It's like some kind of action movie. So the only real thing that you have to be aware of is don't get hit by any bazooka shots, because the recon doesn't have as much life as the light tank did. Also, you might be wondering if the recon why the recon has a rifle in the back that's shooting automatically. Most vehicles have an automatic gun that will just shoot at anything that it can target within range, all on its own. Since the tanks in this game, their shells are slow moving, so they can't really hit infantry as well as if you had a rifle, so that's what the rifle is for. The recon does have a gun that you can aim manually, but for some reason you aren't allowed to use it until level 5. I have no idea why. Also in this level, we're going to be seeing a couple of units that won't get a proper introduction until later on in the game, for some reason. Still, it does add to the tension that you see enemies that you've never seen before, and they're shooting at you, and you're like, well, how am I going to deal with this? Oh, here comes the second of the 2 jumps in this level. I also like the jumps, but for this one, you can see that I just barely make it over the river there. It should go without saying that if the vehicle falls into deep water, then it's going to explode eventually because the engine got flooded. I don't like this section either. There are 2 ammo dumps that if you run into them will pretty much take out 3/4 of your health in one hit. That's not very nice. And you can probably tell by now that the blue jerry cans are health refills for vehicles only. Anyway, you could drive through the trees here, but you want to be careful that you don't get stuck next to one of them, or else you'll waste time. Not out of the woods yet. Very good one. Coming up is a roadblock that you're supposed to drive around the very visible path to the side to get past, but I don't care to do that. I just drive through the mass of units with no regard to whether or not I'm going to get hit. In fact, there was an earlier section in the level with 2 tanks. That one only had 1 tank, so... progression of difficulty, anybody? So, right, once you take control of this tank here, it's time for the real fight to start. This ends with another skirmish between your battalion and theirs. They introduce helicopters in this mission. That's what the gunships are.
What's the intel on enemy activity in this area?
And it'll take a while for them to get to us. The 2 infantry standing next to my tank there are missile units. They're meant for taking out air units. We'll get a more detailed introduction to them in the level they're actually introduced in. For the most part, though, did they attack us from behind? Huh. I didn't know they did that. Apparently they did attack us from behind because the recon is almost destroyed. You can see it smoking right now. Speaking of recons, here comes some more of them. Not hard to deal with. You know, I get the feeling that if every enemy unit in the entire level attacked your battalion all at once, it would be a much harder fight than if they just sent in waves one after the other. But then again, that might wind up being completely impossible, so... I don't know, I guess some sacrifices have to be made for a fun game. And as we close down the level, there's only a few more enemies left. I actually did not notice this until I replayed Battalion Wars 2, but the sequel actually reuses certain level ideas from the first game. Like, there's a couple other missions in the second game that have a heavy emphasis on the recon, like this one did. So that'll at least be a little more fun to look at. I mean, I know I talk ill about the sequel to this game. It's really not a bad game, but both the first game and the second game, I feel, have instances of missed opportunities, which I guess every game is going to have, if it's not, like, exhausting everything that it can. Like the Zelda series. See, this guy wants peace, but he seems to enjoy battles so much. It's crazy. Oh well, as long as it makes for a good game and a good score. I have no idea what units I lost during that battle, but oh well. S rank, good enough for me. Mission's over. See you next time.